Hey cookie creators and lovers alike, I'm Gabby. Spring is here and wedding season is upon us. Today on the Cool Cookie Show, we're jumping into the season with some dazzling wedding cookies. For my wedding cake, I'm going to start by piping the cake stand in a stiff piping consistency icing using a number 4 Wilton tip. I'll let the stand dry for 20 minutes to an hour before I start adding the cake. For my soft piping consistency icing, I'm using a number 1 Ateco tip. And for my 15-second consistency flooding icing, I'm using a number 3 Wilton tip. Let this flooding dry for 20 minutes to an hour before we add the next tier. We'll let this flooding dry for 20 minutes to an hour before we add the final tier. We'll let this cookie dry for 6 to 12 hours before we add detail to our cake. As a final touch, I'm going to add some Royal Icing flowers I made a little bit earlier. Now we'll shine up our cake stand using a little gold luster dust. This delicious cake is all done. For my groom, I'm going to start by flooding his dress shirt. For my soft piping consistency icing, I'm using a number 1 Ateco tip. And for my 15-second consistency flooding icing, I'm using a number 2 Wilton tip. I'll also start by flooding the dark navy sleeves of his tux. We'll let this flooding dry for 20 minutes to an hour before we go in and add some more. We'll let the flooding on the pants dry for 20 minutes to an hour before we go in and complete the flooding in the jacket. Now we'll let all the flooding dry for 6 to 12 hours before we go in and complete the tuxedo. We'll use some gold beads as cufflinks. And a Royal Icing bow tie I made a little earlier. And as a final touch, a boutonniere that matches the bouquet. This groom is all done and ready to see his bride. For my ball gown, I'm going to start by flooding sections of the skirt. For my soft, piping consistency icing, I'm using a number 1 Ateco tip. And for my 15-second consistency flooding icing, I'm using a number 2 Wilton tip. Now we'll let this flooding dry for 20 minutes to an hour before we go in and flood the other sections of the skirt. Now we'll let the skirt dry for 20 minutes to an hour before we go in and flood the top of the dress. Now we'll let the dress dry for 6 to 12 hours before we go in and add the final detail. I'll finish up the look with a Royal Icing bouquet I made a little earlier. This bride's all done and ready to hit the aisle. What's your favorite style wedding dress? Are you more of a big princess ball gown or a sleek mermaid? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click subscribe as well as the bell icon to be notified every time I upload a new video. In the meantime, here are some other videos you may enjoy. Thanks so much for watching the Cool Cookie Show. Till next time, stay sweet.